Hi. Usual filming spot, but completely different video. I was just sitting here minding my own business. Well, in fact, I was scrolling Pinterest and then I came across a picture of a well-known makeup artist that claimed that she would not vaccinate her unborn child. She did also claim that she would have a water birth and raise the child vegan and would have a midwife and a doula and no doctor for birth, but all of that is perfectly fine with me. Well, I'm not a vegan and I would not recommend raising a child vegan, but support midwives. I think they're underrated and horribly underpaid, and I'm very, very happy and thankful for the midwives that I had around when I had children. And I would never do water birth at home, but yeah, whatever, you do you. I do, however, not agree that it's a personal decision not to vaccinate your child. And to give you some background for those of you that don't know me as well, my name's Anne, I'm 39 years old, I have 2 children, a daughter who's 4 and a son who is 2. I'm a doctor. I'm a trained anesthetist. I specialize in intensive care. I worked as a senior physician on intensive care unit for many years before I switched to public health, where one of my main topics is, you might have guessed it, vaccination and transmittable diseases. And that's why I deal every day with people that think not vaccinating their child is a good idea. And disclaimer, it's not. It's egoistic, it's usually due to misinformation, and I'm not going to lie, there is a risk to vaccination as there is a risk to any medication that you can get. Even if you just take an aspirin, you put yourself at risk for side effects. You could have a severe allergic reaction, you could have a bleeding, internal bleeding, anything like that. But the risk is pretty low for vaccinations, and the risk of dying of a transmittable disease is there. It's not high, but it's there. And the risk to suffer long-term problems is even higher. And I think one of the problems why we're facing this whole debate is because we don't really see the problems that are caused by the survivors of transmittable diseases anymore. When I grew up in primary school, I had a teacher. He was an amazing guy and he had 2 paralyzed limbs because he had polio as a child. And though he survived, his legs never recovered. That was what I grew up with. It would have been out of question to not get vaccinated against polio because I knew I grew up with someone that suffered long-term problems due to not being vaccinated. Same is true for measles. Measles are usually not deadly for a healthy child. Measles can have side effects that you can die from measles, but it's rare. But there is a long-term effect of measles that I, as a mother, am scared as off. I will put the English link on the screen because I don't know it right now, and it's not triggered by the vaccination, it's just triggered by the measles. And once your child survived, a few years later, your child's neurons, the nerves are starting to die slowly. It starts probably in the legs, limbs, and it proceeds just until your child can't breathe anymore. Just imagine being a mother whose child survived the measles and then having your child diagnosed with that a few years later. And watch your child getting weaker every single day, knowing that there's nothing you can do because there is no cure. Knowing that you are going to watch your child die, and knowing every damn day that you could probably have saved it if you had had it vaccinated. Honestly, I'd kill myself. I couldn't do that. And I would never risk that. We don't vaccinate for our usually healthy children. We vaccinate for those who can't be vaccinated. We vaccinate to protect those with immune systems that can't deal with vaccinations, who undergo chemotherapy, who are severely sick and are prone to infectious diseases, and they need this herd protection. They need the whole healthy population to be vaccinated so that the virus can't spread. So if you choose to not vaccinate your healthy child, you're risking the life of your neighbor's sick child. There are many myths surrounding vaccination. The toxins that are inside vaccination. Did you actually know, with all the fear of the aluminium that is in the injectables, that a breastfed baby has twice the amount of aluminium just through mother's milk than it has through the vaccinations that it needs in the first year? There are also some concerns that the immunization isn't as strong and that our bodies react differently to the vaccination because it's just part of the virus and not the whole thing, and that's true. Or not all vaccinations are lifelong, and sometimes they are weaker. No vaccination gives you 100% protection, but I'd rather have a weaker response and be partially protected than have no protection at all. And then there's this absolute ignorant study that gets dragged out of a corner again and again that links measles vaccination to autism. It doesn't matter that it was only 12 children. It doesn't matter that this doctor performed invasive procedures like lumbar puncture on children without having the consent and without having the need. It doesn't matter that he received money from lawyers that were actually trying to push a cause against the company that sold the measles vaccination, and it doesn't matter that he had developed another vaccination that he was trying to push as an alternative. He still is the hero that starts to spread the truth that all doctors have vowed to keep secret. I'm sorry. It's just the study itself was weak. There were many people afterwards trying to recreate the study and get the same results, and all of them failed because these results could not be. There is no link. There is no scientific link between measles vaccination and autism. And every failure that he had that came to light was seen as part of a dirt campaign against him. Well, I totally don't get that. I'm not even going to talk about that anymore, because if you believe that, then I'm sorry, I probably wouldn't have listened until now. Anyway. Another thing that I have heard here mentioned many times is that now we are meant to vaccinate against things that we didn't vaccinate against several years ago, and I get where that comes from. That's totally true. I myself was not vaccinated against whooping cough and chickenpox when I was a child because I'm almost 40. Vaccination against that just wasn't around back then. And I had both, I survived both, but we know now a lot more than we knew back then. And we have the means to protect against things that we couldn't protect back then. I like to compare it to cigarettes and advertisements of tobacco and smoking. If you go back 40 years, then there's this whole advertisement telling you how smoking is cool and that smoking is healthy and that smoking makes you alert and awake and amazing. And fast forward 40 years, you can't buy a pack of cigarettes without having pictures of people dying on it. You hear everywhere that this will give you carcinoma and make you basically die and dull and dumb. And that's not because the pharma industry wants to sell vaccination against tobacco. It's because we just know more, and this is why our perspective has changed, and it's the same with chickenpox or whooping cough. I mean, I survived the whooping cough. I was, what was I, 3, 4? I'm sure it was painful for my parents, but for me it was just, yeah, it was 6 weeks of nightly coughing. But did you know that when your child is less than 6 months old, that it can actually die from whooping cough? That whooping cough is one of the reasons for sudden infant death syndrome, because newborns don't cough, they just stop breathing, and if that happens overnight, then they're lying dead in their crib next morning. And did you know that if you are not vaccinated against whooping cough, you can bring it home and transfer it to your kid? I didn't until a few years ago, but I know now, and I know a case where a father not vaccinated brought it home and one of his twin boys died. This is nothing that I would want to live with. And that is what actually bugs me the most. Even if I choose to vaccinate my child, I can start. The earliest vaccination that you get in Germany is whooping cough at 3 months. The first time that I can get a vaccination for my children against measles is at the age of 12 months. I had my daughter in daycare, and I would take my son to drop her off and pick her up. If one child would have had measles in there, and I entered with my son in my arm, that would be enough for him to get infected, and he could not have been protected because how? He did not have a vaccination yet. So if I would now sit here and watch my son slowly die because he caught measles at the age of 2 months in daycare, because another mother did actively choose not to vaccinate her child, you bet I hunt that mother down and tell her what she's done. And again, I really want to stress that I'm not talking about people that can't get vaccinated. I want to protect these people that can't get vaccinated. And I pity those people that can't vaccinate their children, because they have to live in fear of some stubborn, egoistic parents out there that just choose for whatever reason not to vaccinate their child. I can send my kids off to kindergarten knowing that they are protected as good as they possibly can be. There is no 100%, but I can trust that I have done everything I can to protect them. If one of my kids was sick, I don't know how I could let run free knowing that there are so many people out there that choose not to vaccinate their child. And so I urge you, please do your research. Please don't listen to fear-mongering. Please talk to your doctors, and no, we are not paid by the pharma industry. I can't even accept as much as a pen without having to report that to my superiors. We are not paid by the pharma industry. We genuinely want you and your children and all the other children out there to be safe. Please, please do your research. Please talk to your doctor. Please, if you have the opportunity, do vaccinate your child for your night's sleep, for your child's safety, and for everyone else that can't be vaccinated. And now I'm going to turn off and promise to be back with beauty stuff next time, but I just can't deal with it.